thing that everyone works on is the table of contents. And a table of contents, like a cover, talks about content inside the magazine. But unlike a cover, which probably features a small percentage of what's in the magazine, a table of contents tends to feature it all, and it tends to be laid out and function a bit more like what you could think of as a magazine's homepage. Some of the content is featured on the page, and some of it is featured a little bit less prominently. And that is a reflection of the value or the importance that the editors give it. And just because something is at the beginning or the top of a table of contents doesn't mean that it's going to be at the front of the magazine. Just like when I click on a story, that text could come from anywhere on the computer server that's drawing it up. So everyone is going to do a two-page table of contents. And a question I always get is, since you've only done a feature in one brief section, how do you possibly have enough content to make a two-page table of contents? And I would say the same thing as with the extra covers is you just make it up, or you find that text from somewhere, and you just use that to fill your page up. So here is, we're going to look at a couple of two-page tables of contents. Some of them will be two separate pages, and some of them will be spreads. And they are most often in magazine separate pages, and that's because the table of contents are some of the earliest pages in a magazine, if not the earliest, and they are considered for that reason to be good ad positions. Advertisers like to be opposite editorial content. I think we've talked about that before. They think the spread is going to be stickier and people are going to have their eyes on that ad longer if there's something to read next to it. And so, for that reason, even though it's probably not the most helpful thing to divide a table of contents into multiple pages, and some magazines divide their table of contents into 3 or even 4 pages. The function of doing that is to create more ad positions towards the front of the book. So this table of contents was designed to be seen as 2 separate pages, and it's debatable whether most people read tables of contents, but that's why they're broken up, and probably most readers just go by them anyway. But this is Savoy magazine a few years ago, and this is the most common way to organize a table of contents if it's broken up across 2, is to put the features in on that first page, and this kind of lovely image becomes almost a second cover for the magazine. And you can see that if you look at that number, we're starting at page 80 and then 88 and then 92. These are all the back of the magazines where the long stories are. And then you turn the page and there's another ad and another table of contents page, and this divides this into columns and departments. And these are listed where they appear in the magazine. In fact, in this case, departments, the stuff that's earlier, some of this is, the columns are sort of contained in the middle of this stuff. So it doesn't necessarily reflect where it is in the magazine, but the relative importance or the emphasis that the makers of this magazine wanted to put on it. Now, this does say table of contents, but you'll note as we go through some of these that it's most common that it doesn't say table of contents or contents at the front. It might say the name of the magazine, and that says that here too. It says Savoy. Or it might say the month, or it might say something else, but you don't have to be formal. If you're doing your job as a designer, if you're designing your table of contents well, people can know just by looking at it that it's a table of contents. So this is the late lamented Jane magazine. They also say contents, as it turns out, but the biggest words, the words that get the emphasis, is summer. And in this case, they are starting with their fashion and beauty on the first page, and then features and resources. It's just sort of a judgment about that stuff go under it. Very different looking tables of contents, but that's fine because these pages are not seen together. This does have one cute little feature, is a guide, thumb guide to the cover. They reproduce the cover and then they tell you where the numbers are, because most magazines do not put page numbers on, or rarely put page numbers on their covers. Esquire, if you remember the front section from Esquire I showed in that lecture, this is the same issue of that. So you'll see some of the same branding being picked up on in their use of the arrows and the double lines, the Oxford rules. Here is the first page. It does not say contents, just says the name of the magazine. Designers often talk about tables of contents being a branding opportunity, and they mean show the logo, but they also mean show the attitude of the magazine in your other typographical decisions. And I'll be looking in a minute a couple of later Esquire ones that do a good job of that. This is one that's designed to be seen as a spread from Mother Jones magazines quite a few years ago, but they are, like many of these others, starting with features on the left. Features even get bigger, more dramatic type treatment, and the departments and smaller things get less. Some of these get a description, some of them don't. All of that is sort of up for a choice of how one wants to do this. And another one meant to be designed as a spread. You'll see this looks a lot of women's magazines in particular have this kind of collage-y, friendly cluttered look, and that was certainly true of Jane magazine as well. But this is Marie Claire. And here the content is almost ignored. This is the important part. This is a very visual table of contents, and this and the pictures you'll note do come with page numbers. That's pretty common on a TOC. Is really all that I think the editors think that a reader is going to be looking at. The reader is not going to be focused on the bar. And then a couple of later, these are all multiple page table of contents, but I only have this in the first page from This and Another. Esquire really took the branding opportunity all the way with this one. The text is almost also not particularly intended to be read, but it has this sort of beautiful collage of images from later in the magazine. And it's common that these pictures come from outtakes from, not the picture that's used in the story. If it's a wealthy magazine, or someone like Esquire might actually commission a piece of art for the table of contents, that's your really rich magazines that would do that. And your poor magazines are probably just repeating art that appears elsewhere because they can't afford a extra image just for the table of contents that most people are not going to spend a lot of time with anyway. And one more Esquire from that era, this little thing that looks like you could cut it out and fold it up, although I don't think you actually could.